Hi everybody, Dacob here. Welcome back to the Fashion Bunker. Today we're talking about the end of luxury yet again. Fun. This time around, Paris is involved. The capital of haute couture, the capital of prêt-à-porter, the capital of everything fashion, really. Well, apparently there's a lot of money to be made in Paris at the moment. But it's not money you would think is being made. Like, for example, well, this is a fashion channel. What are we talking about? A lot of luxury fashion brands are selling a lot of stuff. All of a sudden, tourists are flying in and buying all the luxury bags and clothes from all of these brands. And the brands are the ones making all the money. Yeah, no. The story is slightly different. As reported by The Guardian, the biggest money being made in Paris from fashion currently is by thieves. And the article by The Guardian is entitled, "A Lot of Money to Be Made. Paris Hit with Spate of €1 million Handbag Heists." Police say ease of reselling, twinned with growing demand, has encouraged gangs to target luxury leather goods. And, there's one part of the article that I found very interesting where they talk about how the criminality rate and how criminals focus, like what they focus on to make money the fastest, has changed in Paris and in France throughout the decades. And Pascal Carreau, the head of the organized crime unit of Paris's judicial police, said handbags were one of the last remaining high-value objects that gangs can target in Paris. That interesting. Historically, before the explosion of drugs, French criminals, and particularly Parisian criminals, carried out armed robberies of banks, which in the 1970s had almost no protection at all. And you remember, if we go back into the history of movies and cinema, there are quite a few movies filmed in the 60s and 70s about bank heists, whether it be bank heists in the United States of America or European countries. French cinema, mostly back then still in black and white, did depict certain form of criminality, and we all can kind of remember having seen sooner or later in our lives a movie that was depicting in a very romanticized manner, like Bonnie and Clyde vibes, but set in the 70s, of robbers in fancy cars, rushing in front of a bank, jumping out, covering their faces, coming in, and, with the guns and all, and then taking the money, and then the heist happens and they rush off. Everything is planned to the minimal detail. The editing of the movie is like super paced, and there's a chase scene involved. These movies were very popular, and they weren't just popular because the action sequences for the time were particularly interesting. They were popular because they were also mirroring what was happening in bigger cities in real time. So all of these bank heists were apparently, at least when it comes to Parisian criminality, all the rage back in the 70s. And they also claimed that the banks did not have the protection that they have nowadays. So it was also easier for these robbers to perpetrate said crimes against banks. But now, the article continues, with banks well secured and less cash in circulation, which if you think about is what the bank system always wanted. They always wanted a cashless system so that they can trace every bit of money flowing around, which is also what the government wants, but also to make it harder to steal the money. So they're going more and more digital. We're practically not using cash anymore. Everything is done by card, or you can have your entire banking system just uploaded to your smartwatch, Apple Watch, or whatever it's called, and you just scan your wrist and payments go through. There's no more cash. So interesting how they want to get the money away from us. Also because it's harder to money launder in luxury brand boutiques if you can't really use the cash. Now ask yourselves why certain brands kept upping their prices and would hush hush under the table accept cash payments of hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's because it's money laundering. It's super easy. You know, if they accept a cash payment, well, the person who is paying with the cash that they got from who knows where, the boutique would not question the provenance of said money. They would just take it, give you the item, and c'est la vie. Well, now, at least Europe is cracking down on this and is trying to limit the amount of cash that you can use to pay for luxury goods in one transaction. And this in order to prevent money laundering. So if you're purchasing something above a certain amount, I think 1,000 to 2,000 euro in Europe, you have to pay with card, or you need to have a proof of origin of the money. But before those laws were set in place, it was very easy to launder money in luxury boutiques. You just bring $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 in, buy the luxury goods that you can then flip, resell, do something with it, but the money is gone. And in exchange, you get some goods for it that are luxurious that can be then utilized again, sold again. Clean money then comes in. Very fascinating. But now with banks well secured, the article reads, and less cash in circulation, patterns have changed. Mr. Pascal Caroux said, the teams of criminals who have not moved on to cybercrime are looking to target physical objects of value on the market. And all that is left are jewels or luxury leather goods. So now it's all about the jewelry and luxury leather goods, except here's the twist. The criminals are having a really hard time identifying authentic items as opposed to counterfeit items, because the counterfeit items are getting harder and harder to differentiate the good quality ones from the counterfeit items. So this is why in Paris, mostly in the central area of Paris, where the luxury boutiques are in, and that's where the crime mostly happens, because they see you exit the boutique with the shopping bag. They follow you around to try to figure out where you're going to, and then they snatch it from you, either from your hotel, from your home, or while you're on the street. Very few of these criminals take a risk trying to snatch away a luxury bag off of you if they have a feeling that you might be carrying a counterfeit. But they are much more sure of getting an authentic item if you just exited the luxury boutique with a brand new purchase inside of the shopping bag that you're carrying out of the luxury boutique. But it doesn't end there, because it's not just about these huge crime acts happening to innocent shoppers. This is also happening inside of the boutiques. And here's a couple of examples. In January, an employee carrying out a stock inventory in central Paris for LVMH, the conglomerate that owns Louis Vuitton and many other luxury brands, discovered 50 handbags by the label Loewe. Loewe also belongs to LVMH, worth about 100,000 euro, missing from the shop. Examination of CCTV footage showed 2 suspects had entered the building one night before Christmas and exited carrying 6 large sacks believed to contain the bags. Just a year ago in 2024, a Chanel shop on Avenue Montaigne in central Paris was ram-raided by a car, and robbers escaped with bags worth between 500,000 euro and 1 million euro. In 2024, the home of an influencer who specialized in luxury handbags and posted photographs of herself posing with her bags in Paris locations was targeted by thieves who stole items including bags worth between 20,000 and 30,000 euro. Everything I say in this video is for entertainment purposes only, not rooted in truths or facts. Everything's alleged and just my opinion. I do believe that the influencer they're talking about is Tamara, allegedly. Earlier this year, they say Paris criminality returned to global headlines when a group of men who in 2016 robbed the US reality TV star Kim Kardashian over jewelry, and that happened in Paris as well, including a £3 million 18.88 carat diamond engagement ring from her then husband Kanye West, were found guilty after a high-profile trial. But Mr. Caro said jewelry heists in Paris had dropped significantly to one or two each year because high-value jewelry pieces, which were often unique works of art, were hard to resell on the black market. He said luxury bags, on the other hand, were easier to sell on. The resale is happening on second-hand sales sites. Some of the bags are transported abroad and sold the same way across Europe, he said. Very interesting. This was fueled by the growing trend for acquiring luxury bags spreading across different levels of society and becoming much more commonplace, Caro said. 40 years ago, these bags were marginal. Now, the fashion for luxury is much more widespread. In other words, luxury has become mainstream. Luxury has become mass-produced. Luxury is no longer luxury, in other words, as per the police commissioner of Paris, and I agree. Partially to blame are the influencers and content creators who were pushing forth this agenda of like bag of boxing, another bag of boxing. They have ruined it for all of us. For all of us. Some of them are still ruining it for all of us because they're still making said content completely out of touch with reality and the world they're surrounded by, apparently. And in fact, he goes on to say this was fueled by the growing trend for acquiring luxury bags spreading across different levels of society and becoming much more commonplace. 40 years ago, it was less widespread. The first 6 months of 2025 showed a marked drop in crime in general in Paris. Compared with the previous year, armed robberies were down by more than 9%, burglaries by 15%, and theft of cars and motorbikes by 14%. But the crime rate for luxury bags has risen. Caro said raids on expensive handbags, boutiques, were not a daily occurrence in Paris, but they had a spectacular impact because sometimes videos by onlookers who witnessed events had circulated on social media. Lalonde, the appeals court expert, said a classic Chanel bag that was €5,000 in a boutique 5 years ago can now cost €10,000 in a boutique. So alongside those shop prices, the second-hand prices have also risen. There is a global demand from Beijing to Dubai, New York to Paris and London. Lalonde said bags were relatively easy to resell because they couldn't be traced as easily as watches or jewels. I beg to differ. Mostly because if you're talking about high-end luxury bags, like from brands like Dior, Chanel, Hermès, Louis Vuitton, they all have either chips inside of them or unique authenticity not product numbers, but authenticity serial numbers in them that are unique to that one specific bag. So, we always told you whenever you buy one of these luxury bags, photograph your authenticity code because it is unique just to your bag. In case it gets, heaven forbid, stolen one day, you can look and see if somebody's selling your bag by finding your code. Another problem, however, is once your code is out and about, counterfeiters can also copy that code and use it to make copies of the item. It's an endless loop, of misery, really, which is one of the reasons why I just slowed down my shopping tremendously. I love the bags I have, don't get me wrong. But I just, it's not worth it anymore. It's no fun. Everything seems to be a cramp. There's like no pleasure in any of this anymore. Buying bags, boxing them. I guess if somebody's brand new to the luxury game and doesn't have any luxury bag yet and wants to have a few, these are really terrible times to start a luxury bag collection because, just like the article also mentioned, I mean, a Chanel Timeless Classic Double Flap just a couple of years ago was $4,000. Now it's $12,000. So starting your collection now, buying new in boutique, is painful, to say the least. Also, what the article doesn't mention, in my humble opinion, and allegedly only, the quality of their leathers and materials has dropped drastically. So while you're paying $12,000 for a Timeless Classic Double Flap today out of caviar leather, that caviar leather is not the same quality, or that lambskin is not the same quality as the lambskin from 2015, 29 or whatever. It just isn't. But they're charging you much more for it. Okay, so, it's painful for somebody who's just beginning their journey today because the prices are outrageous, right? But what are you going to do? People like me who have been in the game for decades now, like, I have the bags I want. I have my bags, the classic luxury bags at that level, they're always the same. They're not evolving. A Birkin is going to be a Birkin from here on out, okay? That's the shape of the Birkin. Here's my co-host. This is the one and done deal for me. I have my Birkin and you're done. I'm not the type of person who's going to be like, let me have another 50 Birkins and Kellys. No, I'll leave that to the desperate housewives or whatever. But I'm not that person. And so once you have that in your collection, you're done. You really are done, because it's also ridiculous to see the prices go up exponentially from year to year, and there's no evolution in these luxury bags. It's not like we're talking about, wow, there's this great innovation happening, the Birkin from 1987, as opposed to the Birkin from 2024, which is the one I got. Like, well, there's been a huge evolution. No, there hasn't. It's like the same freaking bag. So, but they're charging more for it, right? But there's like no added anything. And the only thing I can say is, at least when it comes to Hermès, they did not exponentially jump with their prices like other brands did, like Dior did, like Chanel did. Hermès kept it still to a certain degree. Their prices didn't go up as crazy as Chanel prices during the pandemic time and the lockdown years, when everybody was shopping even more, which contributed even more to the situation we're in today, where stuff is falling apart and luxury just doesn't feel like luxury anymore. But we have come to a point where, believe it or not, the mostly machine-made Chanel Timeless Classic Double Flap costs more than a Birkin. Both purchased respectively at the Chanel boutique and at the Hermès boutique. So, the Chanel price and the Hermès price compared to each other, turns out now the Chanel bag costs more than the Hermès bag, which it's delusional to the point of like, okay, I have no words. But in all of this, crime jumps in and thinks, oh, well, this is easy. This is easy. There's a lot of frail people, who can't really fend for themselves physically on the street. You can just snatch it off them and run. And you get something, a bag, that used to cost $2,000-3,000. Now it's $10,000, and you snatch it off a person and then you resell it. Dangerous times we're living in. Be very careful, people. And another negative factor contributing to this game of cards we're playing is the fact that a lot of viewers of luxury content are also extreme trolls and very ill-informed about content creators' actual finances and lives, and then they love to throw shade at you if you're not wearing a new pair of shoes every time they see you in a video, a new pair of pants, a new bag, a new unboxing every day. Like, how stupid can you be to throw shade at content creators who are actually trying to be more mindful of spending, more mindful to the environment, and more mindful towards their own viewers, not just trying to brainwash everybody into spending more and more and more, but to tell you to actually stop. Take a minute. Stop consuming for a second. That void you have inside of you, honey, you're not going to fill it by spending millions on leather bags. If you have that void, you have that void. And it's very visible that you have that void. Very visible. You're actually flashing it to your viewers on a daily basis. And that void, surprise, surprise, ain't going to get filled if you keep stuffing it with luxury bags. Work on yourself. Get a good shrink. Get a good shrink. Do some real good psychotherapy. Maybe stop posting videos on social media, It's embarrassing. Gets very cringe. But people just get out of touch with reality. They just start thinking, oh, well, me. No, the world doesn't revolve around you. Focus on what is positive in life. What is positive in life is being very clear. We are not living in times where overconsumption is something good. The fact that criminality rates have risen in this regard shows us very clearly that there's something wrong. So we have to stop it, dial it down, not be part of the problem, but try to help fix the problem. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts down below. Thumb up the video, subscribe, and never give up on love. Bye.